Hey, welcome to episode 136 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined as always by Tettles.
Yo, what up?
And Trell in his new exciting abode. Welcome.
And sometimes Trell lately.
And,
Tettles all the
and
time.
as always, mostly, TM
Sometimes.
asterisk.
Most of the time.
Yeah. But you've had this exciting move now, and no bicycle in the background. Nice artwork, though, that I can see.
Yeah, I need to take a picture of it and put it up on the wall so we still have the bike.
Yeah.
So Dranos and I, before the show, saw that you had infinite weights and like an elliptical machine next to you. Do you happen to have a bike or just the elliptical machine in this room?
No, just the elliptical right now.
Okay. I'm proud of you for buying artwork and not keeping like a college bachelor pad.
Yeah.
Oh, I've had these and a couple others for like a couple years. They're just never in the frame of the show somehow.
Did you paint those yourself?
No, I bought these.
Yeah, I painted this thing here myself. This and then Tettles he copied me. He copied me and he plagiarized.
Actually, we went to one of those art like classes together.
Oh, yeah,
We did,
yeah.
like a couple's painting, and we were just talking through what. And that's why they're the exact same.
Yeah, it was like a Bob Ross class. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Couples painting.
So you're saying Display buys from you guys and then sells to other streamers?
If they are looking to sponsor a podcast, they know where to find us.
And I'm sure they are now looking for us with an army of lawyers. All right, when we're ready to fight, we'll take them out. We'll take on all comers. But this week we're going to talk about. We've got a couple of kind of catch-up things. We've had a lot of these guest episodes in the last few weeks with interesting topics, but what has happened sort of in the interim over the past month and a half has been the introduction of the Shrouded Affix to PTR, some iteration on that Affix, and also some information about how Season 4 is going to work in general with regards to itemizing and raid. So we're going to kind of slow down this week and cover those things, and then in future weeks probably ramp back up with guests and stuff. But I think the first thing to talk about this week really is the M plus sort of push situation that's on live, because again, since we don't have a guest this week, we can kind of just chill out and analyze what's happening with the current push meta, which right now, for those who haven't been following along too much, we have a plus 33 that's been timed by a Chinese team, and then a bunch of incredible work just getting over that 4K mark by Echo, by teams in China, and yeah, actually, I guess I can just pull up Raider.io and we can take a look at the situation,
Is the
right?
Chinese team rank 1? Charles, you and I were talking about this at lunch today. Is the Chinese team rank 1?
Yeah, we were trying to look this up at lunch, but we didn't have reception, so we never actually figured it out.
They don't have all their runs. Like, we don't see the 33, because like there's some teams over there that don't log or use the Raider.io add-on, and if that's the case, then the runs would need to get like manually added, which they don't always do here, or they don't always do instantly. So
Okay, according to chapter 4068, right?
4068. Okay, so 1 point,
2 points.
1.1 points ahead of Echo, who are at 4066, which is also incredibly high.
This Chinese team is the team that used to be Astra Y, so it's like the team that won the most recent TGP. Very, very good players. There were some tweets that came out about some of the keys that they were doing. I think it was on JPC's Twitter.
Yeah. Now this was almost all of this push was done last week, which was actually only just ended in China, but it was the fortified push week. Now we kind of enter a tyrannical push week, and depending on when they drop Season 4 on us, there's a chance that this might be the last good tyrannical week of the season.
I have a question. Charles, you probably know a little bit better about this. What's the situation with avoidance right now? Because people are running like 15% avoidance sets, basically perma, right? And they've spent like millions of gold.
Oh, yeah. I mean, apparently you can actually get over 20% avoidance, and that's been a thing for a while. I didn't even know that.
This expansion, apparently, yeah.
Uh-huh. And you need it this patch especially if you're a Hunter player or any other kind of squishy DPS that's almost as squishy as Hunter. You got to have like 15% avoidance if you want to do 28 plus.
Corey was telling me that like if you're trying to do a 29, you can't have anything less than 12% just for some of the one shots from like Zab, Stomp, and stuff like that.
I have it.
Well.
Yeah.
With like the Zab Stomp and whatnot, it was like you needed at least 12% avoidance minimum if you're a warlock and you would like a lot more if you're a hunter kind of thing.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
crazy that it's just
Yeah.
it's getting to that point again.
Yeah, a lot of those nerfs that came in are actually pretty good. Like the Zav Stomp will probably barely not kill people on 30 now, 31, if you have a lot of avoidance.
Yeah, so they nerfed a bunch of specifically brutal tyrannical bosses. Now throw the Rhymebinder, Icebound Aegis to make that fight take less time, and that's actually pretty big. This is a pretty big reduction in how long you're going to do this fight and how lethal it is as well, right? Because you break through the shield and it stops that pulse.
Oh yeah, that's a big nerf.
Tarvold damage on Castigate, and Grand Proctor Brilliant damage reduction on Agonize, which is one of 2 dots that are both on you when you're dying in that fight, if you know that part where you're always dying. But there's some offsetting kind of buff here, which is one of those dots was scaling with Fortified instead of Tyrannical because it was coming from the Naru. That's like the RP Naru at the top of the room. At least that's my tinfoil on why I was doing that, but they fixed that.
You're right.
Yeah. That's what most people's tinfoil was on it.
Yeah. So that has been changed, which is going to make this fight slightly easier on Tyran, if I had to guess, and much, much easier on Fort compared to how it used to be. And then they nerfed the Triple Angels in Spires of Ascension, 20% health and Aura of Intimidation damage reduction too. So huge nerfs coming in to those, and then finally that 10% to Zavs. Well, bam.
It's
Yeah, those angel nerfs are big too. We did a 28 Spires yesterday. Just one shot it straight up because those angels took, like, I swear, a third of the time because of the combination of the health and damage nerf.
It's so funny that people started using double spear plus lust on those angels and we're still wiping to them sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay.
That lust angel on Fort is actually crazy. Like, you have to have every single cooldown, 2 spears, and lust, unless you have like a really, really good single target comp.
Yo, triple angel in the MDI kind of a meme now?
It'll be a lot easier, yeah. I mean, if they keep the key levels similar, it will, for teams that were able to do it before, it will feel so easy. But, you know, the stuff like taking spears off of it to maybe do like a double spear big pull down before the third boss, that kind of thing's maybe on the table now. I don't know.
Oh, shit. Wait, double spear. Oh, God.
Yeah, like you could imagine pulling an extra pack in there and then
Justice
using
League
2
pull?
spears on, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that these are all things that will be looked at. That was really nasty though. Angels definitely deserve that. So I like this set of changes. I think it's really well targeted changes to most specifically and most they're specifically targeted at the things that were like the most out of line, especially for the high key pushing, which is nice to see, right? Because it helps everybody, right? Obviously, everybody has trouble on those fights sometimes. There may be a few fights that still are hard, but I feel like these are the ones that felt like unfair damage numbers. A lot of them.
Yeah, I wish they would have nerfed the really, really long Tyrannical fights. Like Devos is still a 6-7 minute fight on Tyrannical. First boss of Mists is so long. It's like at least 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Well,
There's a
Devos
few of
is
those still.
compounded by like how much you have to commit to it right before with Klotos, like which obviously doesn't do it any favors. I think that if you're able to lust it, or if you're able to pull like actually have cooldowns for it, it could probably be a 4.5 minute fight if you had CDs. It's just 6 minutes because you're going into it without lust and without any offensive cooldowns off the rip, and you're just AFK during P2 because you're sitting there having to chunk through almost 40% of the boss's HP sometimes.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if there's going to be much score push this week. I think there's a pretty good chance there will be, right? Like a lot of teams have Tyrannical IO that they can improve, especially with these nerfs. So we may see the Echo, China team rivalry continue up into 4100. So I guess 4100 would require a lot of Tyrannical score, huh? But maybe.
That would be a lot.
Yeah.
China team has been doing a lot of time. I mean, for the longest time, their main claim to fame is that they just did stupid key levels on Tyrian weeks when people are like, why are they playing?
Back before you got Tyran scored, that was the region that played the most Tyrannical weeks. And it served them well. I think it's particularly for like great push. It's a really good experience to have. And also, obviously, now that Tyrannical score matters. So, agree.
Tyrannical's also just a nice week. This week especially is super nice for people doing mid-level keys, like 20 to 25. Those keys feel great on these affixes because the bosses aren't super long yet, and you can just mow through trash regardless of your comp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's moving to a place where actually Tyrannical weeks can sometimes feel sort of, I don't know if I want to say fun, but like they're much closer to a nice change of pace than like a dead week that they were like in BFA, right?
They made the Fort weeks kind of god awful.
That's part of it, right? They put
like,
all the nasty affixes on fortified.
There's only one decent Fort week, I think, this season again. I haven't looked at them closely yet, but yeah, like every Fort week has got some really, really hard affix, like bolstering or necrotic.
Inspiring.
Love that.
Inspiring, yeah.
All right, another M plus take that was floating around the Twitters that's probably worth covering here came from JB, as they so frequently do, about itemization from M plus, which was now this part, obviously namesake of our show, we all love the Titan forging system. My favorite era of M plus was Titan forging because you could get 90% of your gear from spamming keys. It wasn't a perfect system, but it let me have competitive gear by doing the content I enjoyed, and I don't feel like that's a big ask from the game I'm playing. And there were a lot of tweets actually from from JB, from a bunch of people about itemizing and gearing and itemization from M plus in particular. We're not going to go through all of them, but definitely worth a read if you are interested. Go and hop through some of these threads.
The problem is, like, what is competitive gearing? Because, like, you could argue that it gives you competitive gearing. You could do... I mean, we had Greg on the show a few weeks back. Greg is doing literally 28s and 29s with being, like, 273 and 274 and stuff, right? He's doing it without the 285 gear.
Yeah. It's tough because, like, I do think that if you just want to do Mythic Plus, it shouldn't be like... You shouldn't feel awful about not having like raid gear or PvP gear, but I do think this patch is not too bad on that front. I think it could be a little better. I don't know. I wouldn't hate like the time that the Creation Catalyst comes out and it eases up a lot of gearing. I think would maybe be a good time to start saying like, hey, if you only want to do one of these three things, like you were behind up until now, but now we're going to start giving you the ability to kind of like fully biss yourself out, even if you're only doing one form of content as like at a high level, something that like let you go up to 278 or 285 even for non-raiders, because like the first few months you really want to do everything if you want your character to be as geared as possible, right? Like the world first raiders, it's not like they don't do M plus or PvP, right? They do a lot of M plus and PvP, and it's nice at the start of the patch, I think, that the game kind of pushes you to do all the things in the game. Mm-hmm. But at this point in the patch, I definitely wouldn't mind if it was easier to just do one thing.
Well, if they announced it in advance, would we get another Creation Catalyst thing where people were like, "You didn't give it to us fast enough"?
Definitely possible. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a problem with when the Creation Catalyst came out, but I do worry that they will look at the way that it was received and be like, okay, this is not good, which would be a big shame because I thought it was so good.
I think it's also worth mentioning right now is about the time when most Hall of Fame guild players are getting their 285 items from raid, because a lot of them didn't get loot for the last 4 weeks before killing the last boss because of extending, and so now is when the gear influx is actually happening, which is too bad because push weeks are like halfway over right now and they had to wait for 3 months. But
to some extent that's a characteristic of like how hard Sepulcher was though, right? Like usually this would have been like a month and a half shifted in the past, but sorry, go ahead.
But I think there will be a much bigger disparity next time the push weeks come around, because everyone that raids at a high level will have a much bigger gap in gear from people like Greg who just play with Mythic Plus gear.
The avoidance
not to
point
say
as
Greg
well.
could keep up. He might still be able to keep up, honestly.
Yeah. The point about like how much avoidance are in these best sets as well, it's like it's not even so much about like rate, it's just like, have you been playing this character nonstop enough to be getting these avoidance pieces in all these slots, and like have you invested 5 million in some avoidance BOEs for your character as well, which I don't know. I don't know if I think that's good or bad for high key pushing to incentivize like min-maxing your character to that extent. I'm ambivalent. Like I'm pulled in two different directions on this one.
I wonder if TGP is going to have like avoidance on tournament realm.
They usually don't, right?
Should. Well, they haven't in the past, but they also, at least talking to...
Didn't they add tertiaries one time to
No,
MDI
they
or
haven't had
TGP?
tertiaries yet. So, like, they tried to keep the gearing as closely simulated to live as possible. In one season, they added the targeting dummies for the first TGP because they wanted it to closely simulate live.
The cardboard assassins, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's
everybody was
right.
using
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they would add. Maybe they would add avoidance. I'm not Not 100% sure. It would be interesting. Let's see.
All right, let's see. Last little bit of stuff before we get into the Shrouded Affix was the Mimosas and M Plus that happened last weekend. Went well for anybody who was wondering how that went or was interested in doing it in the future. Bunch of teams, or a couple people from NA and EU, both factions, were able to do some keys. And I guess all in the same Discord at the same time, which is the best way to do M+, by the way. If you're ever... My guild does this. We do... we call it the PCI, the Pop-Tart Corn Dog Invitational. Or I guess it was back when we were Parse Culture, the Parse Culture Invitational, where we would, after raid, we would split into like 4 teams of 5, and then all do a key in the same channel, all the same dungeon if we could. Like we'd figure out who had the same key and then have those people be the team captains and draft the rest of the people. And then we would just try and int the other teams to beat them in comms by like calling kicks or whatever for them.
Next.
I
Yeah, exactly.
got next.
Yeah, you try and figure out where they are in the dungeon and make a believable call so that they wouldn't figure it out. But that's not what happened here. This was a more collaborative, wholesome, trying to time some 15s and stuff environment, and they also had a lot of fun. So there are threads and stuff. You want to catch the future one? Definitely something that can be very fun.
Threads are also for like networking in general. I'm not necessarily sure like how often they will be used. At the same point, there are threads that are in the general channel in the
Titanforge podcast Discord. Yeah, so very, very cool. Glad that people are getting to play together. That's always fun.
Next time they do the mimosas, I will try to be less busy. I was busy on the Saturday whenever they asked.
I couldn't make it this time, but I'm usually there too, and it's a good time. I think Riley said they had 2 NA groups and 1 EU group running this time.
Yeah, that's what they had. They had 15 people in court. They had a lot of people in court. I was looking whenever I was at DreamHack or whatever, and they just had a ton of people in Discord.
Alrighty, let's start talking about the Shrouded Affix now. So for those who missed it, Shrouded, it's been on the PTR now for 20 days or something, 3 weeks, and the affix is fairly simple, at least conceptually. Basically, throughout the dungeon, several enemies are replaced with Dreadlords. They have like an aura around them. They're purpley glowy, and as soon as you pull that mob, it turns into a Dreadlord. And they have a couple of abilities, and then when you kill them, instead of giving count, they don't give count, and the mob they replaced didn't give count like when it transformed either. So you do lose some count in the dungeon from this affix. But you gain a stacking stat buff, and you can choose which stat you want at the start of the dungeon, or if you don't pick anything, it'll default to verse. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you get a bunch of stat from this, and then there's a mini boss as well in the dungeon, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. One of the disguised ones will be the mini boss instead of the regular Dreadlords. And by the time the dungeon's over, you kind of got a boatload of stat, whichever stat you want, and you can kind of just blow up the last boss. But I think I've seen a common response has been like, so this is it from like this seems kind of...
People did that with Tormented too. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember where it's like, oh, that's it, right? Which I don't know. I mean, I feel like I felt like it was enough, but
I like it that it's minimal. I'm really glad they've been doing minimal things for the seasonal affix lately, the last 2 seasons, because there's so many affixes per key these days that it's just like overwhelming how many things you have to learn in addition to the high mechanic loaded mobs in each dungeon.
Not to mention it's new dungeon season, right? This season is going to be on Mechagon, Karazhan, Grimrail Depot, Iron Docks, and still Tazavesh. So only 2 of the 8 dungeons in that your Keystone can be next season will be ones that were doable this season. So
Trell, whenever they have Sanguine, are we allowed to go recreate your most popular Twitch clip?
Oh, yeah, the lower Kara where I drew a dick with Sanguine on accident. That was when I was like a more casual WoW player, and that got posted on Reddit, and I was like, oh my god, this has so many views.
I haven't seen this clip. I didn't see this.
I looked for it like half a year ago, and I think it got deleted by time, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sad.
But it's the room where there's like 50 little dudes on benches, and you pull them up and you just drag them, and like they got knocked perfectly to make a perfect phallic shape. So.
I do think that on the topic of minimal seasonal affixes, though, I think it also helps them balance the timer a little bit easier, because going Prideful into Tormented, timers were tight, and now we've gone to like more minimal seasonal affixes, and you see like Encrypted, people are just like, the timer Echo 2 chested a Plaguefall 31. Like, what in the world is that? Obviously, Plaguefall's timer's been free for a while, but that's still crazy.
That's another thing about, like, this is still the gearing up period of the season. Like, people are not done gearing, first of all, and second of all, they still have many strats to figure out, because when comps change heavily, like this season, there's Warlock, H-Priest, Blood Decay for the first time in forever. Strats are going to be quite different, and you can optimize way further as the time goes on. I mean, right. I think at this point, I think we might see like a 34.
I wouldn't bet against it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of it's just like rolling the good 32s and 33s, right? Getting the good RNG on the. That's kind of always how high key pushing works when you've got some dungeons that are like way easier than the others to time, right? It's just like,
yeah,
are you getting King's Rest or are you getting Junkyards, right?
King's Rest is a special kind of prison.
Or next season, are you getting the Upper Karazanes or are you getting the Junkyards?
Is anything?
Yeah, I wonder how Upper Kara will relate to that.
I don't think that anything is not Upper Care. Junkyard to King's Rest level of skewed this season. Obviously, Necrotic Wake and Plaguefall are easy, but they're easy relative to the other dungeons. But it doesn't feel the same level of like King's Rest, which is like abnormally hard for no reason. Like some of the dungeons have tight timers, like Mist of Tyrannus Scythe and stuff. If you get like a dragon, that can feel super terrible. I've seen some people deplete 29s to just bad maze pathing and stuff like that.
Oh, dude, that dragon is so bad compared to any other mini boss. As soon as I get the dragon, and especially as a Brewmaster player, I'm like, okay, I'm dead. Like,
oh, you died to the dragon? Really?
The dragon hit goes through physical stagger. It treats it like magic stagger, so it just straight one shots you at like the second stack.
Did you try pressing shuffle?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Counter argument.
But also, like, yeah, that route, if you get far right and mists, and you get the dragon, that means you're getting the like horrible route to the maze as well. So it's like a minute and a half loss. Too. Yeah.
Okay, back to Shrouded. One thing to talk about is the stats, the way that they work. So, on the face of it, being able to choose all your own stats is a cool idea, right? There are some quirks with how it works that I think are worth talking about. So first of all, you either get 2% crit per stack, 2% haste per stack, 2% verse per stack, or 69 mastery per stack. Now, obviously, first of all, it's a very funny number. But second of all, because that's a flat amount of stat rather than percent, it runs into the Shadowlands diminishing returns stat system in the way that the other three don't. So if you pick the mastery one, you are going to get less value as you start getting high amount of stacks because you're going to enter those diminishing returns amounts of mastery. The other thing that's worth noting about this as well is that not all stats are equally worth, right? Like if you think about how much versatility rating you need to get 1% verse versus how much crit rating you need to get 1% crit, or haste rating you need to get 1% haste, the verse is actually the one that's like the most valuable, right? 2% verse is the most effective rating, right?
25. I think it's 25% more versatility. It rating to get 1% versatility relative to crit. And so like that just puts in perspective how much more stat you're gaining just in a raw amount over the other two options. In addition to that, it's really broken. Like the DR that you get is absurd.
Yeah, now I chose haste for a lot of the PTR testing, and by the end of the dungeon, 30% haste, you could feel that. This permanent bloodlust, right? Like that, your rotation felt different. It was really cool. But I'm pretty sure that the meta, if they make it as is here, is going to be to pick versatility because, it's for the same reason we stacked versatile when that corruption was around, right?
I was going to say, this is going to be exactly like BFA Season 4. Everyone's going to be like, oh, I can get haste. Haste is so good. And then they get to a high key midway through the season. They're like, never mind, everyone pick burst.
Yeah. Now, I don't think that's necessarily awful if it's like that for high keys, but I do wonder, like, if the versatility amount was nerfed, for instance, or if it was made so that they were all rating instead of percent as well, so that they all... Although I guess that would kind of suck, because the DR is really not fun. I wish there was a way that they could do mastery without the DR.
The DR is aggressively bad, actually.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, because it would make you want to, like, pick something and then have none of it on your gear and just get all of it from your buff or something. It would be weird.
I kind of feel like they should make it so you get, like, 1% all stats every time you kill one. And so you just like decide how many you want to kill before you hit the last boss, you know? Sort of like max how many you get to. I don't know. There should be like some kind of switch like halfway through the dungeon or something like that, so you can not run into DRs. Because like I would want verse through most of it, but I'd probably want some of another stat too because of DRs.
Yeah, again, the ones that are the percent rating aren't going to run into like the Shadowlands DR, but they are going to run into that the just kind of normal thing of like the more you have of one stat, the more valuable the others become, which there's of course no way around. Yeah.
Or in Junkyard, you're all going haste and picking up your shock bots and letting the dungeon kill itself.
Junkyard, yes. We so for reference, we tested 15s on the PTR, except for Junkyard, where we tested on +20, and it was much easier than the 15s.
And we tested it too.
Yes, it was.
Granted,
yes.
we were in that dungeon for the first time, and like the other dungeons we hadn't done in a while or ever. And Junkyard we had all done at least recently, so there is a little bit of a difference there.
We did a little cheating, yes. So yeah, that's the way the buffs work. It's interesting. I even if it makes it live as is, I think it'll be fairly good. Although the verse meta is definitely going to be everybody's going to pick verse for keep pushing. Let's talk a little bit about the Dreadlords themselves, the way they work. So first of all, the fact that they just replace the mob and remove the count has been something that's been discussed. I don't have a problem with it because you do get the stat buff at the end, and my problem has always been whenever there's been something that like replaces a mob and you don't get count, like, or that you have to fight and you don't get anything for, right? Like emissaries before they gave count on PTR was really unfortunate. But the way these Dreadlords work, I don't know. I mean, you got a stat buff for them, so it does mean we're gonna have to like slightly pull more packs than we did in places like Junkyard and Karazhan with the way the old count used to be, but I don't think it's a horrible design choice. Do either you disagree?
It's only relevant really for Streets and Gambit, like because you have such heavy pre-existing routes and you're going from season to season, so it'd be a little bit jarring. If you got it in like Halls of Atonement or something like that we've been doing for a year and a half, it would be really weird because you're having to change up your route so dramatically. But I think that for these dungeons, it's just going to be like integrated into the default route, like at face value, and I think it's fine.
Yeah,
it is a bit weird. But
the trade-off of like the question of like, would you choose to fight a Dreadlord at any given time is an interesting one, and I think the answer is like yes, up until maybe 2/3 of the way through the dungeon. Fighting Dreadlords is like something you want to avoid, or do you want to do rather than avoid?
Well,
unless they start like just destroying the tank.
That's the thing. They have buffed the Dreadlord abilities since we tested them on PTR. They were fairly they buffed it. Well, they've adjusted a few of them. Yeah, and some are like half buff, half nerf. But yeah, so they have this tank slam, Vampiric Claws that now it's bigger than it was initially, than when we were testing it. But it's this like tank targeted attack that heals based on how much damage it does. So you can like use defensives against it to make it heal for less. But realistically, it's going to cast this 2 or 3 times and heal itself, and you're going to have to do more damage to it. You can Mortal Strike this thing as well, so that'll be good in comps that have that. Which Rising Sun Kick, any Rising Sun Kick enthusiasts?
Any Windwalker players in the chat, maybe?
That's me. That's a Rising Sun Kick enthusiast.
Wait, are you a Windwalker now, Dreadnoughts?
Soon TM. It's I'm gearing it up. Yeah, I got 4-piece, but some of them are 236 4-piece.
Windwalker's slamming now in raid. It's in a great spot now.
He's probably not able to die as Brewmaster even with 236 tier.
Yeah, I got it. Well, the problem with my Brewmaster is that the tier is in spots where I want my legendary to go. So it would be bad if I were to play Brewmaster until I get a better like a helmet.
I think the only criticism I really have for this Affix is like it's clear that it's like super cool, but it's weird because it feels lackluster because I think it's because at least with Encrypted, and the reason that I think a lot of people like Encrypted is that it's like pretty flashy, like what it does, or like there's like a very I don't want to say strong, but it's like a very apparent buff. Whereas with the Shrouded Affix, it's really difficult to tell that you have the buff outside of just like looking at the damage meter, which can be a positive, but you don't really notice that you have it, especially like Dretna said, especially if you take versatility.
Yeah, it's kind of like the difference between Vi and buffs, right? Where it's like, buff or woe buff as well, right? Where it's like I feel this, right? Versus like the Vi buff, where it's like it's there, and Vi does even come with haste, but even
mastery and crit, like most classes don't like.
Exactly, like that's what I'm
in
saying,
a
right? Like,
meaningfully changing way with like mastery or crit.
yeah. So I mean, some do, right? Like if you're a Frost DK, crit's gonna feel phenomenal, but everybody
Or like
else,
like a beam hunter's gonna get more barb shot procs or whatever. Yeah, like some classes are gonna get more out of, or like haste.
I mean,
Surf hunter, you're
the
like
verse
bomb CDR out the wazoo kind of thing.
if you're picking verse though, then yeah, it does feel like not much is actually happening, right? In the same way that like the versatile corruption, right, didn't really feel like anything was happening either, right?
Yeah,
except you're a tanky beast.
Right,
Love
like
that corruption.
the number is good. You're like, oh, we can time these keys. That feels good. But I do agree that yeah, it's kind of a little bit less flashy.
I don't know. It's a weird spot because I think it's a good seasonal affix. It's just like how does it go from a good seasonal affix to like a top tier like great seasonal affix? And I think it's close. I think it's one of those things that like just by design, this is a seasonal affix that is close.
See, I'm like 100%. I love this kind of design because I think that people will complain either way. And if it's something besides just flat stats to the player, if it's like a borrowed power effect, then that's also not fun. It's just like the junkyard bots. It's and if it's too impactful, like Pride was, that's also not fun because then you just try to skip everyone that you can. So minimalistic stat buffs combination of the seasonal affix is like perfect in my mind.
People will certainly complain either way.
Yeah, I also struggle to like. It's hard to put your finger on like exactly what it is that, but I think Trella, I agree mostly with you that like, kind of just happy to send this one as is because I think if the affix gets out of your way and the dungeons are fun, like it should be pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's also just a chill season, right? Or it should be.
Yeah.
For most people, I think it's a pretty good idea.
A lot of people are gonna be learning the dungeons, so an easier affix will be helpful.
Now, one thing that was fairly hard on PTR that they have nerfed somewhat was the mini boss Dreadlord. So it's in the same spot every time. All the Dreadlords are always in the same spots in every dungeon, right? There's like a certain mob that is always replaced by a Dreadlord, and in each dungeon, one of those is actually replaced by Zolgamux, who gives you 3 stacks instead of 1 when killed, and has a boatload more health, has a stacking magic tank dot like the reaping little mobs did, has a shield, and the shield is kind of the part that was the nastiest for us when we were doing this, where she shields herself and siphons blood from all of us. So until you break the shield and then can interrupt her, she is healing for a lot and damaging the group for a lot. Now, if you blast through the shield quickly and then you can land the kick, then it's not too bad. But the longer she's living, the more of these she's casting, the more health you're burning through, and I could see that being something that starts to feel pretty bad in high keys. Now, when we were testing this on PTR, there was also this bat that was unCCable, chasing somebody down and mind controlling them whenever and it lined up with every blood barrier. That has now been changed to be CCable. So it is no longer like that was something I think that was a huge part of why the blood barrier felt so rough for us when we were testing.
It didn't line up with every blood barrier. It came like right before every blood barrier.
Right, so the nasty part the part like you wanted to dump damage into it and into the blood barrier to break the shield, right? And it's you can't do both, but now you can just like stun it and then kill it after, or knock it and trap it or something.
You could probably like para and run away from it or whatever too.
Yeah, something to stop it, right? Now that works, is pretty big, and then it does have the mini boss also has like an AoE around it that you can walk outside of and should do that.
I haven't tested it since they changed it, but I suspect that this made this mob a lot more bearable because it was rough. it was rough when we were testing. I won't lie.
Yeah, the combination.
Mortal Strike feels really important though. Windwalker monks.
The Mortal Strike is going to reduce the healing through the blood barrier. Yeah,
Strike too. I kind of like the Mortal Strike mechanics being a thing now because there's like Hunter, Rogue, Warrior, Monk. What else is Mortal Strike? Anything else?
Just those.
Do
you like it because do you like it because two of the 4 of those are like super meta and 3 of them are playable?
Yeah, I mean,
I guess all 4 of them are probably playable.
I mean, how many classes have Soothe? 2, 3?
Hunter, Druid, Rogue.
3.
Like, I think 4 classes having a stop for that kind of thing is pretty good comparatively to most sets of mechanics,
Yeah, it is funny that it kind of lines up with the specs that were already meta for damage reasons this time around, right? But
yeah,
kind of my point. It's like, oh yeah, Windwalker and Serve are already banging a bit. So are you really? I don't know. You're never gonna be upset to bring those.
All right. Yeah. So I guess thoughts on it for me. Yeah, mostly positive. Maybe would be interested in some way of changing the buffs around so that it did feel more impactful. But honestly, if I think there's a chance that by trying to do that, they might make it much worse than it currently is, the version that's on PTR. So it might be a case of do not touch this. It's already great.
Yeah. I think that's about where I land on it too. It's overall pretty good affix. I think it's like close to being top 2, top 3. But it's also for a season that's less important, I would say. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird spot.
All right. Let's move on to tip of the week then. My tip of the week is about MDT, the greatest add-on in World of Warcraft Mythic Dungeon Tools, which, by the way, if you use MDT a lot, maybe consider throwing Nagi a Twitch Prime if you got a freebie, if you got a free one of those. Help support the dev efforts there, or of course use it on one of our 3 channels. If whatever you want, just maybe once every 4 months, kind of rotate between the 3 of us and Nagi. A good cycle on the Twitch Prime or his Patreon. Or our Patreon, all of them. If you've got a lot of money, you just everywhere. But anyways, the thing I want to talk about MDT that's new is efficiency score, which is really cool. So if you look at a mob, if you mouse over a mob, there's a new feature called efficiency score that will show you the ratio of count to health that thing has. So the higher the score, the greener the efficiency score, the more count that it's giving you per point of health, which you need to obviously do your own analysis of what is going to be worth pulling, but this helps you do that because that's like a step in the process usually of figuring out what you want to pull. Right? Is this thing worth a lot of count? Now, generally, a mini boss that you have to fight by itself, it needs to have a better efficiency score than the AOE pulls because you're doing less DPS on single target than you are in AOE. But if it's got a much better efficiency score, that can be a good indicator that hey, if we were a single target comp, this might be something that's actually worth thinking about for us.
I have a question. Yeah. Where is the Zul'Ramis Gatekeeper on the efficiency score table?
10,000%.
I have modded my MDT such that if I ever accidentally mouse over or click that mob, it Alt F4s my game to stop me from making a horrible mistake. So I can't actually check that. Yeah.
The point at which they don't even pull that in the MDI and they literally pull all of those mobs in that area except for the Gatekeepers is the point where that mob is bad news.
Dude, they pulled it in. There was an MDI pull where one of those got pulled in, and it kind of looks like they were doing okay for a bit, right? And we were talking is this part of the... And then they wiped, and we're like, okay, no. Yeah, those are banned. Those are banned. Do not do that.
They had the orbs, and the javelin, the pull, and then they still just died. You're like, okay, yeah, that checks out.
Unbelievably banned.
That's the Tal'Dazar Honor Guard of the X-Pack. It's just never nerfed, never changed enough to be pullable. But this one at least wasn't barring the only boss doorway to get to the boss.
True.
I have a question. Why is Corey in my chat saying the Gatekeeper's good count this week?
Well, Corey accidentally pulled the relics from one of the Gatekeepers yesterday in a key, but that actually worked out. I think we'll talk about that in a minute.
Stealing my tip of the week already.
All right. Before we get to Tettles' stolen tip, though, Trell, what's your ethical tip?
I gotta pull it up. I forgot what I wrote. Oh yeah, so
Mood.
Something about the Blizzard coding broke the Unity weak aura that could check to see if your Unity was broken or not on raid checks. So it's gonna say that it's broken every single time. If you have the weak aura now, you can just delete the weak aura. But what you should do is every time you change covenants, just take off your Unity and re-equip it, because that seems to fix it every time in my experience. But it's hard to tell if it's working or not until you actually pull a boss or do a key. So just make a habit of taking it off and putting it back on.
Yeah. It was they've removed weak aura's ability to look at hidden buffs now ever since we used that to cheat the Among Us phase. They've just completely taken that functionality away from weak auras, and that was how that one worked. Is there's a hidden buff that said you had 2 legendaries equipped that wouldn't be active if Unity was bugged.
Well, that's unfortunate because there's a lot of fixates that are hidden buffs too.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know of any other weak auras that are current that have been bricked by it, but there may be more. Yeah.
The junkyard dog box in that
one.
That one was a hidden
I think that's
aura.
just an actual debuff on you. I think I remember actually looking at my buffs and seeing it.
So it wasn't an actual debuff for a little bit, and then they turned it into an actual debuff at some point. But like that one was using a hidden aura for a while.
I see.
Yeah.
Which mechanic?
You know
Dog
Cujo, the dog boss in Workshop, where if you have like a little buff that says you're behind the box. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Oh, I said Junkyard. Yeah.
You said Junkyard. I was like, do I already forget a boss in Junkyard?
Dog box, like the LOS, like the buff was invisible or it was like a hidden buff for the longest time.
All right.
Yeah.
Tettles, what is your tip of the week?
My tip of the week is if you aim the breath from Blightbone, aka the first boss in Necrotic Wake, at the Zolramus Gatekeeper, and you are lucky enough to not spawn any of the maggots on top of it, but unlucky enough to aim it at the Gatekeeper, you can actually pull the relics with it.
So is this good?
It is good. Yeah, you can get the free pack of relics.
Well, like
your orbs will kill the relics.
Is there an RNG chance of pulling the Gatekeeper every time you try this, though? Or like if the maggot spawns on it, or?
Well, no. You have to. So if the boss is far enough away, you're gonna pull it with the breath, but not pull it with the. But not spawn the maggots on top of it, because the maggots only spawn within like a certain amount of radius.
Oh, so the breath hitting the relics pulls them?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you can do that with the pack upstairs in the back of the room too. I don't know what it is about the breath, but it just pulls the relics somehow, and not the mobs. Yeah, I've seen that happen too.
That is very cool. All right, I didn't know that.
Also, I should mention
something not useful, but
something that's very broken about Necrotic Wake. Like the second boss adds that you CC the mages. Like, I don't know if they just made their hitbox 3 times as big, but they get broken out of CC so often now. And I know one of the criminal abilities is Warlock's CD that hits like in an AoE because of the conduit. And that like breaks them out no matter where the boss is. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on with those, but be careful on those.
What is it? It's the mages on Amarth?
On Amarth, yeah. Solra. When you cast Solra on the boss, it'll break the mages like basically no matter where the boss is.
Well, I guess the boss's hitbox is like really, really big, right? That's a weird one. That's so weird.
Yeah, but we were having issues too with like Fan of Knives somehow, or Shuriken Storm somehow hitting them from like a mile away too. It was really strange. I don't know what's up with that.
That is actually really weird. Because like with Soul Rot, you can just be like, oh yeah, boss's hitbox is big. But with Fan of Knives, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, because that's just from the player, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Huh. All right, let's move on to talking a little bit about Season 4 raid content, which, so for those, again, who don't know, Season 4 is going to feature Fated raids, which every week that's going to cycle between the 3 Shadowlands raids, which one is Fated. And then if you go into the Fated raid, you can get buffed item level stuff. So item level, for instance, from Heroic, you'll get item level 291 or 297 from the last 2 or 3 bosses. In whichever raid is fated that week. And Mythic, obviously, you can go all the way up to 311. So, first thing from this is, obviously, the difficulty is going to go up. There was something about affixes as well. This week, bosses in this raid are empowered with a special affix. Loot drops are upgraded to a higher item level in the fated thing. Now, I've seen some data mine stuff, but we still haven't actually tested what these raid affixes do. Are you guys excited or kind of not super jazzed about the prospect of going back into Shadowlands raids for upgrades yet again at this new 304, 311 potentially from Mythic item level?
I think it could be fun. I'm more excited to see what kind of crazy stuff affixes plus raid bosses do in combination with each other. Like, there's no way they make an affix that isn't just bonkers for some boss.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're probably not going to aim for them to be too hard, especially because it's hard for me to imagine there being an affix they could put on Halandris that would be harder than like the pre-nerf things, like than the difference between the nerf version and the original version. So like bosses that have been nerfed 3 or 4 times, I think even with an affix are still probably going to feel easier than they were, like easier mechanically than they were pre-nerf. But
yeah, true.
Yeah,
I'm still holding on to hope that they put sludgefish chains in for the affix one week.
Yeah, or Halandris bombs on some other fights, just to make us juggle those things on Jailer.
Teaming bombs.
Are you guys worried that so they're only available for 1 week at a time, right? They rotate?
Yes.
2 weeks?
It's one. It rotates weekly. Yeah.
Are you worried that it's going to be like progging 3 different raids at once for a lot of guilds? Like, what is like the play if you're stuck on Stone Legion and you can't really kill it, and you're just like, do we just quit this week? Like, what's really the, or do we have to genuinely reprog this boss?
I mean, yeah. So doing Stone Legion General's progression again is something I do not intend to do.
Yeah, that's the issue, right? It's like, even if it's like 20 pulls, I think that I don't know how down I am for another doing 20 pulls of Stone Legion just to. Nah, I mean, maybe I would be. It's a weird spot.
Yeah.
I'll be down, but it depends on how it's tuned and what the affixes are.
I mean, the thing is, like, when it first comes out, we're going to be 278, right? But if we just do heroic faded raids for a couple weeks, we get up to 290, 295, right? And that would make the mythic faded ones easier as well.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the hard bosses to get the top gear from the faded raids either, because of a system that is designed to mitigate it. Obviously, the fact that there's 3 times as many bosses and 3 times as little time per raid as usual. So you're going to be able to buy 3 specific items of your choice after 3 and then 2 and then 1 weeks of full clearing a raid, basically. And if you're clearing on heroic or mythic, you'll be able to upgrade them to those levels as well. And so you can buy weapons, trinkets, special items like the priest or DK rings, like those sorts of things. You can get any of those, any 3 items of your choice, without like necessarily having to kill the hard bosses. If you don't want to, if you just want to, go in there for a little bit and kill the easiest 3 or 4 bosses and not wipe too much, you will eventually get your, Jathis or your Gavel.
It's just an atypical farm cycle, and it's just like,
yeah. I worry a little bit that some guilds are just going to not do it, because like, if you think about a guild where like,
kill your guild, by the way.
Well, if you think about a guild that's like, 10 people that are pretty excited about it, 10 people that are kind of mid on it, and like 5 people that aren't super excited about it, getting that guild to be super excited about, like, you need 20 people. If you were trying to raid Mythic, right, you need 20 people. So even a few people that are like kind of really not wanting to raid could mean that whole guilds are not going to do it, right? Not going to touch it.
This is a hot tip. If you don't, especially depending on how long that season's going to be, if you're going to take a break for like 4 or 5 months, that is a good way to kill your guild.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, there certainly will be guilds that, because then the problem is that the people who do want to raid will not be happy and they will leave. They will go join a new guild that will raid. So
yeah, that's true.
It's a challenge for guilds. Guilds are gonna have to figure out. Like my guild, our current plan is to do them, but not increase our schedule at all. So we'll be on our 6 or 9-hour schedule or whatever for the week, and not go up to our prog schedule of 20 hours plus some bonus fun ones at times. So that's kind of the compromise that we're expecting to land on, and hopefully everybody's okay with that. But
I suspect if
tough.
we reach some friction where it's like, oh, Stone Legion Generals is killable after 30 pulls, we're like, let's just bounce. It's fine. It's not the biggest deal.
If I was Blizzard, I'd be coming in with a big suite of Stone Legion. I would make Stone Legion Generals just a loot pinata. Just
the problem.
Do not allow that fight to be any amount of difficulty, because it is not any amount of fun.
The problem is like all of Mythic and Heroic needs to be like pretty easy to where you're not full reprogging a boss that you saw 8 months ago. Otherwise, people are gonna kind of hate it. Right?
The thing is though, that like for guilds that have killed, like, if you've already progged a boss, it's a lot easier, right? Like, so much of your wipes on bosses are unfamiliarity and like lacking the strat. And okay, to be, obviously we don't remember what we did on Sludge Fist super well, but we'll catch it back up pretty quick, right? With Sire even, like, we'll get it back fairly quick. Maybe take a couple hours of prog on that thing, but it won't be anything like what it was the first time, unless the relative difficulty, like the tuning, is relatively harder. I do think that, it makes sense for Blizzard to make sure that they aim the tuning to be like relatively easy on these. There's not a huge reason to, like, you don't even really need to do them either. Like, you just do some easy bosses and you can get all your upgrades that way. There's not like a Hall of Fame. I think there's a pet or a mount for doing all 3 of them on like any difficulty. I don't even know if there's really any title or anything behind doing them on Mythic. So the fear of missing out hopefully shouldn't be too bad for people that don't want to engage with this. But yeah, it's interesting, because I really like I do like the idea, but I know that there are a lot of people that are like kind of tentative about it. I don't know. I wonder if it's the kind of thing where like, would this be better or worse if it was raids from older expansions, right? Would this be better or worse if this was like Nighthold, Nyalotha, and Castle Nathria, versus being like the three Shadowlands ones, including Sanctum and Spulker that we've just done? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. How many total bosses are there this next season? Do we know?
31? Was it 10 in Nathria and 10 in Sanctum? I think so, right?
Yeah, yes.
So 31 because it's 11
right.
in Spelker. So
For some reason, I was thinking there was
That is a
8
lot
in
of
Nathria,
bosses.
but that's not right. There was 10.
yeah, Sludgefist was 8 because Council was 7. So
Yeah.
yeah, 7, 8, yeah, and then
10. Yeah.
So originally I thought they were gonna do like 2 bosses from each raid, or like 3 bosses from each, and have like a 9 boss tier. But I guess they're just releasing the entire raid and the trash at once at the same time, huh?
yeah. Now, if there are affixes, does that imply the existence of trash count in the raid as well?
You have like a 10-hour timer.
Could you imagine like walking to Dosegni and it's like, oh nope, can't pull that yet. You've got to pull 60% of the trash that we put on these platforms.
If that's the evolution of trash and raid, I don't want it. Like it's
Oh,
not that
man.
I love raiding. Like don't get me wrong, I will continue to raid until I quit this game. Like I love raiding. Oh my god, this trash count shit is obnoxious though. Or not trash count, but this like trash in raid thing that they keep doing is so annoying.
Yeah, it is.
I
Yeah.
get that it's a bastion for these bosses. There doesn't need to be 100,000 mobs guarding them, man.
Just why are we allowed to skip them? Because if we can skip them, we always will. So just make it so we have to kill them to spawn the boss. I agree. It's so unfun.
I would actually be sad if they removed all of the trash from the raid. There could be 85% less trash in the raid though, and I'm probably okay with this. And that's not even like an exaggerated number. That is like there could be 85% less, and I'm just okay. That's chill.
All right, so I guess we'll see how the season works out. I think the one thing that I'm really jazzed about is the deterministic item getting thing. So I hope that even if the rest of the system doesn't work out as well, I hope that's something they iterate on more going forward, because I'm really excited about being able to guarantee a gavel and or old warrior's soul, like those sorts of things, rather than like my death knight now. I still don't have a gavel. Now, to be fair, I've only killed jailer a couple times. A lot on heroic, but only a couple times on mythic. But still don't have one. Feels bad. I could have increased my chances by quite a bit. I could have had a lot more rolls at it, but still, knowing that
Dude, I
at
got
this
the
point I'd have it for sure. It would be so. You got a 285 gavel?
No, the Windwalker two-hander.
Okay.
But the equivalent of the gavel.
Yeah, the polearm
except
thing.
less good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that one even bis? Or isn't it like worse stats than the?
No, two-handers are actually best this tier. I mean,
okay.
actually, I haven't simmed since the big buffs Windwalker just got, but they've been bis at Mythic Item level plus for this tier for a long time.
Nice. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on how the season's developing and keep bringing the news, but that's the basic idea of what Season 4 is going to look like. They've said late summer for Season 4 was the most recent language they've given, so again, it could be kind of any time. After they dropped 9.2.5 with very short notice, they could do that again with Season 4, right? The Season 4, like they usually have to give, 2 weeks for the PvP season ending soon?
They've only been doing 1 week notice for PvP as of this expansion.
Okay. So yeah, could be whenever. I imagine they wouldn't do it now because the MDI finals are still coming up and AWC finals, right, are coming up. So I imagine they wouldn't want to put those on the next season, but I guess they could. They could do whatever they want, right? So.
Do you know something I don't?
I don't. I legitimately don't know the answer to
Are
this
you hinting at
question.
something that I don't know?
No, I'm just trying to speculate. I think that there are a lot of people that were saying like September, October, but obviously the fact they've said late summer, technically that could be September, right? But I feel like before September is pretty likely.
Can we get a prediction on when the Shadowlands Alpha comes out?
That's a good point. Yeah.
2 years ago, I'm predicting.
Yeah, that's an even better question is when the Dragonflight Alpha comes out. Yeah.
The Dragonflight Alpha. My bad. Wrong expansion.
Yeah, that I've heard rumbling. I've heard people say like, "Ooh, it's coming soon. It's coming soon." But I feel like a lot of those people are just making stuff up. I don't know.
I feel like it's like middle of next month, if I had to guess.
The thing is, yeah, it's
That's
already
yeah, somewhere like that.
It's already weird that it's not out yet, right? Like, given
Why?
Well, like if they're trying to release the expansion this year, right? Which I don't know. I don't know if I'm still on copium thinking that's a possibility, but if that was what they were going for, like you'd be really shocked that there wasn't a beta yet, right?
They slammed BFA alpha in March, and BFA released in
August, right?
September. No,
September, okay.
30th or something.
right.
And that's when they were all back in the office, and we didn't have. I don't say we didn't have timeline issues, but we had less severe timeline issues of products getting delayed from Blizzard. I think that you're on some fucking copium if you're thinking that it's coming out this year, man.
All right. Well, if it is coming out this year, they need to give us the beta very soon. Is all I'm saying. That's
2 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 2 months ago, exactly.
I don't think it's coming out this year, man. I think that's pretty heavy copium.
Man, what am I gonna do with myself?
I think the beta would come out. I think the beta comes out after the 4th of July. Is what I would have to guess. Like the American Independence Day, people are going to be back working. It makes sense for it to come out then.
True. Yeah, we gotta. Of course, we're in the lead up to 4th of July now, so most of us Americans are kind of getting our big celebrations ready, going into this sort of month-long prep for 4th of July. For those who haven't lived in this country, it's a big thing here. Yeah.
The United States doesn't get much paid time off for things like tanning, so they are legally required. Not legally, but they take PTO, paid time off, for 1 day out of the year, and it's the 4th of July, so they can go tanning, because most Europeans like to go on vacations fairly regularly with their time off, but the American system doesn't work that way always.
All right, let's go thank our support. Thank our supporters over on the Patreon who have chosen to give money to this content, and we are extremely confused and thankful at the same time. They are Paul, Trell is my mama duck. If a Kyrian prop paladin and a survival hunter end up in the same group, does it make it Team America? Jaw, Dratnus' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, Never Nude, Chewy. No M+ season title for NA Boomkins. Are there no? I wonder if he's saying there are no Boomkins in the top cutoff. I would kind of believe it. It's rough out there for the chickens this season. ZivXX, Salty Senny, Necris, Sinmora, Tank Dill, Nevuk, Red Ceratops, Eevee Survival Main, No Trick, I Forgot I Was Sub Tier, Dymat, Lufer, Rework Mistweaver, Van Heelen, sponsor of the podcast, purveyor of dad jokes, eater of bacon, first of his name, Nyx, I'm so proud of my son Delete for become such a good boomkin, Gallic, Brusif, Dratnoshouts Abyss, extra tip, on the Dredger world quest, healing a ripened laborer gives it extra uses, Msanity, Xena, that's actually a good tip. I wish I'd known that when I used to do world quests. Rogue is now good enough for frogs, still bad enough to be sat for SLG, bless up. Red Color, youtube.com/workbringer, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming, #1 Simski for Trelsky. Lurka got his golden rabbit out of mists. Now he won't stop talking about being a magician. Remind him that mages don't cast chain lightning. Again, for those who don't know, golden rabbit, that's the changeling, right? They're talking about. I got flamed for not interrupting in Arathi Basin Comp Stomp. Milk. Benil, aka YOLO Swag Crew. Sife, Pone. Windwalker Monks deal with nerfs by rolling with the punches. Due to Sims with 4-piece, Skelly will be going back to Elemental from Enhance. Dosegni, making more Vamp kids than Twilight. And y'all got any more of them talent trees? True. Very,
Wait, was that saying Elemental was simming higher than Enhance?
If you
Is
don't...
that a thing?
This name change came in a couple months ago. May have been with just the gear they had at the time or something, because I think Enhance generally is simming better, but maybe if you don't have like a agi
weapon, man.
Yeah. Do you know that if you're enhancement and you have two weapons, you put the higher item level one in your offhand, not your main hand? Isn't that interesting?
Oh, I did not know that. That's a good tip.
because that's the one that enhancement does the damage
Saving
with.
that for next week.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Can't do that. I just used it.
Dude, the shamans in my guild are simming for 18k single target.
Good grief.
Did you know that there are approximately 0 Moomkins over the rating cutoff for the rank 1 title?
That was somebody's name was that. Is that
You
is
would
that
know
actually
that
the
if you
number?
stayed for the Patreon call.
No, I know. That's why I was bringing it up.
Oh.
Actually 0. Buff Moomkin.
Bro, why are you not pushing on Moonkin?
I saw a tweet that was like there's 6
Good
feral
call.
druids in the top 0.1%, and there's 0 Moonkins. It's kind of
Is
it's
that
not that
true?
Moonkin is. Yeah, it's not
Oh
that
my
Moonkin's
God.
not capable. It's that Moonkin players are just like, well,
They're
this
so
is
bad.
dumb. I can just play Warlock, and they'll just play Warlock.
And that, yeah.
Charlie, you want to get me whatever it is, 3600?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's move on to Q&A. Our first question comes from Scion on Twitter, who says, as an idea for revamping affixes, how do you feel about just having a single affix each week in the style of a seasonal? For example, week 1 Reaping, week 2 Awakened, week 3 Encrypted. Make each week feel unique while being less annoying.
Yes, I like that. That's what I'm talking about.
That only works for a 4 fun season, though, is what I will say.
I could see doing this end of year or something.
I think how many affixes we have in each gear are just a pain in the butt. Like
I'm down to cut it down from 4 to like 2 or 3.
Yeah, maybe not just 1, I guess, but something less than 4, I think, is what needs to happen.
I do like the seasonality though of affixes. Like I think that having affixes as complicated and dungeon shifting as Awakened and Encrypted, having those exist for a whole season rather than changing weekly, I think is good. But I'm down to like lob Tyrannical and Fortified and then simplify and condense and cut the worst of the others into like, oh, this week is Volcanic week or whatever, and or not Volcanic, but some other affix like that. I don't know.
I don't mind like all the on death affixes being on that level 4 row. Like it kind of makes sense, but then you look at the level 7 row and you just get like a hodgepodge of stuff varying from inspiring to like you said, volcanic. Like these are not the same.
Yeah.
Right. I think if you have less layers of affixes on each dungeon, it's easier to tune the dungeons appropriately too, because you don't have to account for this exponential thing on top of it. Like Fort versus Tyrannical has seen so much tuning this whole expansion, like at least multiple times per season, right? They've nerfed one or the other. And then in addition to that, sometimes affixes will float under the boat and not get fixed or nerfed because they have to focus on others.
To their credit, I do think this expansion has been a lot of good movement on all the affixes.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's an interesting idea, yeah.
I think that it only works necessarily for like a 4 fun season. I think it's difficult. A 4 fun season where you're playing dungeons that I don't want to say don't matter, but matter less in a different way. Because I think that players would get pretty annoyed if you just slammed that in the middle of the expansion, right?
Yeah, this could be like a pre-patch thing or something. I don't know.
I would be down. Yeah, I mean, it's not like a bad idea to play. Like from a player enjoyment experience, it's an interesting decision. It's just not. There's like a competitive level to Mythic Plus in some ways, and there's like a fun level to Mythic Plus, and this is definitely way more in the fun area and a lot less in the competitive area.
All right, I don't see any other questions here, unless Tuttles, you got any other ones hidden away.
I did not.
Did not. All right, well then, it is a fairly short Q&A segment and a fairly short show for us this week. We will be back next week with something else that we haven't decided yet. So hopefully it'll be good.
Guest, maybe
a guest. Who knows? Maybe stay tuned. You got to follow us on Twitter. You got to join the Discord. Keep in touch, and
we definitely don't just randomly pick guests on Mondays occasionally. They were like, yo, you want to come on?
Dude, if we pick a guest on a Monday, that means we are on top of it for the week. We are
ahead of schedule.
We are owning. Yeah, usually it's the panicked Tuesday midnight.
It's almost never is it Wednesday, the day before the show.
Almost never.
It's almost never. Yeah.
It has been several times, but not as often as the Tuesday or the Monday. Sometimes we're even really good and we do it on the weekend. Anyways, that's what we'll figure out soon. So hope you enjoyed this one, and see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.